There are two types of racking cane. You've got the glass one with the U-bend. Now the depth of that is near enough the same as the yeast in that container, so I'm not going to use that, and I tend to use this for my final rackings because I don't get so much, there's no chance of getting the yeast in at all. Alright, it's clear. Most racking canes you get nowadays, there's a plastic cane with a stopper on the end. It just fits in on the top. Now that will sit vertically. Obviously, liquid's going there and not there. So therefore you don't get the lees, the dead yeast at the bottom. Because it's the first racking, I'm not too bothered about taking some yeast out of there because the dormant yeast and live yeast also sit at the bottom. I'm going to actually wash this yeast as well. We'll film that, and later in the series I'll come back to that one because I want this yeast for my cherry mead. And obviously the bigger quantity of yeast cells I have in my starter, the quicker and better the fermentation, as I've said before. So when we rack, I've sterilised the container. This is the mead. That will go down on the chair here, then I'll siphon it in. You don't need to have a racking cane. You can use a tube. You will drag some yeast in, but later on you will need to get a racking cane. If you don't do homebrew already, if you just want to make a mead, it's the first time. Right. It's still bubbling away slowly, but very, very, once in a while you see a bubble go up. So it's still fermenting, which is what we want because we're going to add more honey to top it up to that space. So we're going to get the jug and the honey, mix that in. If you watch my Saturday racking or racking in tips video, you'll see how I mix the honey up. So I'm not going to film that because you can watch that on there. And then I'm going to pour the honey gently into the container, or the must, the honey water must, into the container, and then we're going to rack onto that rather than add it afterwards. The only reason I add sometimes on the end is if I'm topping up after like a third or fourth racking, and I'm just topping up to keep that headspace there. So I'll get on with that and then I'll get back to you. Sometimes you'll get, with a plastic container, you'll have air, when you rack into it, you'll have air bubbles that are attached to the side. Can't be helped. And the way to get rid of them is to gently just vibrate the sides. And that gets rid of the air and also the oxygen. This is what you don't want, is oxygen. Because the oxygen is what sherryfies it and vinegarises the mead. So just give it a gentle tap, vibrate, a couple of flicks, and that releases all the air bubbles off the side of the container. Don't get it with glass. The way I put my piping, my tubing in round, it swirls round so it don't tend to build up. But yeah, with the plastic, just give it a little vibration and that will turn around and get the air bubbles off the side of the container, and therefore no chance of oxidation. Normally I use a CO2 thing. I'm not going to use that today because not everyone's got that. So that's another little tip if you're using these PET things. I've put a pound of honey in there, still some head spice. I'm going to top that up. The way I'll do a top up, if you're not as careful, the demi-johns is easy to pour in and run it down the side without dragging too much air in. The other way, this has been washed and sanitised today. You use a chopstick as well. Actually I've got a sanitised chopstick, I'll get a chopstick. So that's the jar that held the honey in, the jug that held the honey in, just some spring water. If you turn around and put the spouts near the chopstick, it will take it down. And you can turn that up and go vertical. And if you pour it slowly enough, that will run straight down without dragging air in. Now because I've put the honey in, or the honey water mix I've just mixed up with a pound of honey in, straight away it will start to fizz. This means there's enough yeast in there. The original gravity, or final gravity of the first fermentation was 0.990. It's quite dry, you can smell it's quite dry. So that pound of honey, I'm going to measure it in a second again. Also give it a little stir. As with me, just take your time. There's no need to rush it. That might not be enough of that. Touch more, I think. There we go. Basically, I've just taken it. Well, I've taken it beyond. There's a little line, but I've taken it beyond that. Just another collar, and that gives you enough headspace. If you notice with the airlock, turn the grommet around the other way, so that inside, it's flat, which means any oxygen or air is going to get pushed out. There's not going to be an air pocket or a gas pocket at the top of this, because if that was the other way, you'd have a pocket. You want that up as high as possible. Turn the grommet round, a bit of Vaseline around the rims again. Everything has been sanitised. And then we just gently squeeze that in. As you can see, there's some bubbles there on the side. Just a gentle tap. Just releases them. Just check all the way around the container. As you can see, I can pick it up. Just a group of bubbles there, just a quick flick. And that's it. That's the raki done. And then all I've got to do is take the label off this one. I'm going to wash this yeast. I'm going to take the label off this one and put it on there, and if you look at the label, it's first rack, so I'll write in the date today, and that should start bubbling away. Thanks very much. As you can see, you just label it up, day you racked it. Second racking, I normally go for 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, so 8 weeks of the racks will be the 10th of December this year. 6 weeks might do it. The Narbonne yeast, that might eat through that quickly. It should top out. I'm going to do a AVB calculation on what it was, and then I'll do an AVB reading if I hit 14%. Narbonne cuts out about 13-14%. So then you know how much to back sweeten or how sweet it's going to be. So it's all about the calculations. So I'm just going to go do that, and then I'll update you with that, and that's the end of this program.